Hey, this is Austin Heitzman, coming to you from Portland, Oregon, and you're listening to Bonsai Time podcast. Bonsai on, Garth.
Bonsai on Wayne. Hey everyone, this is your host Kevin. Welcome to the Bonsai Time podcast, a place for history, horticulture, and having fun. Today's episode is part one of a two-part conversation. So join me as I sit down with an iconic stand maker, Austin Heitzman, for a deep dive into all things woodworking and stand building, the cultural connections between America and Japan, and how tables and stands function as an artistic medium in their own right. We also explore Austin's philosophies on art, life, and so much more. And whether this is your first time listening or you've been with us from the very beginning, thank you so very much for being a part of this amazing community. If you have feedback, ideas, or suggestions, send them our way at bonsaitimepodcast@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share the episode to help keep the conversation going. And if you want to hang out with us in real time, join our Discord channel, Bonsai Time Podcast Chat. Let's jump in, and always remember, bonsai on. So when we moved to Ohio in 2018, it was the worst winter they had on record in 30 years. And then when we left in February, moved to DC with that whole thing, it was the worst winter they had in 30 years. And then I know like y'all in Portland got the crazy winters that I never grew up with. You know, I'm from there. It's like,
Yeah,
I guess it's more time to think about art projects and start a band in a basement. I don't know.
I guess so. And we don't have that many bands in basements here,
Not anymore. Yeah.
but I'll take these extra dry days, though.
No joke. It probably helps just everything woodworking, right?
Yeah, I know. I was like frantically stocking up on materials early in the week because the forecast was it was going to rain, and into this part of the week. And it's just, you don't want to have a sheet of plywood hanging out of your truck in the rain. It's not the best.
I was going to ask, like, what does that mean to stock up materials for you comparatively to like a bonsai person or whatever?
I mean, just in terms of what jobs are on the horizon, kind of anticipating what it's going to take to do those jobs. And while I may not be at the phase of dealing with the plywood right now, perhaps it's best to get the plywood in the shop so I don't have to run out on a rainy day and grab it.
Yeah, and then waterlogged and heavier than it would be normally.
Well, at that stage, it ruins the plywood. It's not even a matter of it being heavier. It's just the glue is not made to sustain getting wet like that.
That's true.
I mean, unless you're using marine grade. But most of what I do, I'm not going there.
Not yet, right? Underwater, maybe next.
Not in the plywood realm, at least. I'm not building boats.
Have you found it difficult with the rising costs? Because I mean, as of right now, I'm doing some side jobs here and there and repairing small things around people's houses around here due to the extreme weather conditions in Massachusetts, especially in the mountain range where I'm at. And I went 2 weeks ago and the cost of lumber went up like almost $3 just in that time at Home Depot out here, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do most of my wood shopping at Home Depot, so I'm a little insulated from that. I mean, most of my material I'm getting from smaller mills who are harvesting trees from inside the city.
Okay.
So that mitigates a lot of the fluctuations. I mean, there is a kind of an overall course of material expenses, and the market value for walnut has gone up over the past 5 years, but it's been much slower and incremental than the kind of wild fluctuations you were seeing in building goods. Perhaps early in the pandemic, and then most of like sheet goods and stuff have actually come down from those prices. Days. So it's actually, when I was buying the walnut plywood the other day, I mean, it was almost back to where it was in 2019.
Oh, nice.
It's up probably $20 from there, but it was up double there for a hot minute. So, that's kind of nice to see. So it's a mixed bag. And then you have like trend fluctuations. Like right now, white oak is the hot trend, and white oak lumber is now pricing higher than walnut in a lot of cases, which is kind of crazy.
That's interesting.
The hot thing. So that inflates the prices. So
Is it because of the relative access to white oak in certain places, or walnut in more places than not, or?
No, I just think it's aesthetic. I mean, walnut's been on top for so long. I
Yeah,
think there is a desire to something new,
yeah,
like everybody wants to reinvent the wheel.
yeah. Make it
Um,
spicy.
yeah, and I think white oak just kind of fits with contemporary trends in terms of color. It can be, bleached white, and that
Mm,
really, I think, sticks with the more pristine modernist color
right.
schemes, whereas like a cherry just really doesn't fit with that aesthetic. You
Yeah,
know,
that makes sense. Just in relation
even raw
to
white oak is
everything.
that light tan just kind of fits more with the clean white box than
Right.
the rosier woods. So it does kind of make sense to see it. And then what is it? How do you pronounce it? This cherusing or something of that nature, where you basically paint the grain a color
Oh, yeah, I've
and
heard
then
of
you
that
finish
technique.
the
Yeah.
wood. And so the grain kind of, you have white grain on a black wood, and it
Right.
looks like hell, but it is a very trendy
Yeah.
thing to do.
For
Uh,
now. Yeah.
yeah, and so oak lends itself to that with the
Yeah.
coarse grain that it has.
Is there a constant trend that will just never die, in your opinion? There's always the ones that go up and down, like say painting with vivid colors in the 90s, then you don't do that anymore, even wallpaper, right?
I mean, we'll see how long the river table lasts, but
Yeah, that's a whole another rabbit hole to jump into there. Have you been or like asked to commission a river table?
I've never done one,
Okay,
and nobody's ever asked. I mean, it's kind of, if you don't do them, people don't go to you for them because they don't see them in
yeah,
your repertoire.
that's true.
So I've never gone there. I mean, I do it with glass, maybe. No interest with the epoxy. It's just too much epoxy.
A
Not a
lot of
fan of
chemicals
all
too.
that
Yeah.
plastic. So, but in terms of just general trends, I mean, walnut will be king and has always been king, at least domestically, for eons, and I think will continue to be so for a long time. Even white oak, I would say white oak might be short lived, but I think walnut at the end of the day will always kind of come out, if not on top, a close second.
Mm.
And when and if white oak falls, walnut will be right there to catch it and carry on as number one. You know,
Well, circling back to river table, you mean like the river tables that we've all probably seen on Instagram or somewhere in a flashy online ad where you have the two pieces either with epoxy or the glass that makes it look like a river between two tables, right?
yeah.
Explicitly how it's stated, river table.
Yeah, which I don't know if we're allowed to use that term anymore. I think it's
Is it
been
trademarked?
the originator, the guy who originally did it. He he trademarked it and then sent some cease and desist letters to Instagram people who were using the term. Um,
Well, by
so I
no
think
means do I intend to get money.
epoxy tables come up in terms of the terminology just to replace that.
An interesting little kind of adjacent thing there. It's
Yeah, the burden of forming an international trend, it requires a whole legal team apparently to manage.
uh
Um,
doesn't sound like I
so
want to get into
I don't think we have to worry in bonsai.
that. Yeah,
I don't think it's on offer.
you're right. Yeah, it's this conversation. I've known you for a while now. What I saw you, I think we had our first real conversation back in 2018 at the Rendezvous in BSOP when I just had moved to Ohio. I think I wouldn't leave you alone for that morning. I brought you a coffee, if I recall. And I was like, yo, let's talk, let's talk. And then since then, it's just been that kind of the interlooping of like, oh, hey, you're here too. Oh, I'm here too. Let's talk. I mean, last time I saw you was at Nationals.
Yeah.
How's it getting back home? How's returning back from Portland with a lighter load, I guess you could say, and more time to do more work?
Oh, it's been good. It's
Yeah.
nice to be home.
Yeah.
Traveling for work is part of the game, but it's exhausting. I mean, it's always fun to go see new places and, getting on the East Coast for the Nationals, you run into a crowd that I don't see out here ever. So a lot of those people I saw at the Nationals, I haven't seen since the last National I was at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice to be able to.
Was that the 2018 National you were at last?
I didn't go to the, what was it was the last was the one I went to. So what are we in now? 20,
5, so it's been 23. So
it's
2021?
been 4 years.
Yeah, so
21.
21. Yeah, the pandemic
Yeah.
one. Yeah, that was very small and quaint
Funny
one. I
thing is
remember
I don't remember it as a pandemic national at all. Like my memory of that event, I have no memory of any pandemic measure whatsoever,
Same.
which is funny. I don't, it may have been, I don't know. Like it's
Yeah.
funny to think of it as 21 because it does feel like it was smack dab in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, my memory of that event was totally pandemic free. I don't know if it's just kind of
Mm,
my mind just kind of erasing those days in a way.
right.
But yeah, I can't think of any pandemic measures from that event whatsoever. That's just kind of fun.
It's
Yeah.
funny you bring that up. That was actually going to be kind of a question I was going to talk about. I'm like, I don't know. It's just so many things. It feels so long ago, but it hasn't been that long, you know? It's just was such an uproar. Now there's so many things going on in the world now that feel almost the same kind of expression or identity of that, labor exhaustive mental
But
game playing every day, you know?
I think it's just when you throw a rock in a pond, you get the initial splash, but then you get the ripples as the water settles again. And that was a big rock. And I think we'll be seeing ripples for some time,
For sure.
extending
Yeah.
out from
Yeah.
that in one way or another. I mean, it's reinvented a number of ways of existing and doing business. I mean, you look at any downtown in America right now, and, they've essentially been made obsolete overnight. And that really needs to be sorted out is like, what do we do with these spaces that, kind of like shopping malls took a long time to die.
I was going to say the strip malls of the 80s are ghosting out pretty
Exactly. But
hard.
that was a
Yeah.
20-year process where I feel like the pandemic killed downtown in the better part of, 3 months. Um,
Yeah.
a much
Yeah.
bigger shock to the system.
Yeah.
You see the limping shopping malls still there today that, they're like, okay, this is a dying breed. They'll be gone here eventually. But it's like they've still been struggling on, whereas that has been
But yeah, and
much,
looking at, what was it Lloyd Center in Portland, right? They've turned
yeah.
it into basically a maker's market. So I hear where there's
Yeah, it's
small
like I
little.
haven't been in recently. The ice skating rink is still open. And so the
Oh,
last
cool.
time
Okay.
I was there was last winter. We went ice skating. And
Oh,
it
nice.
was at that point just kind of an empty ghost ship with an ice skating
Yeah.
rink in the middle of it. There was like 5 or 6 retail establishments that still existed. But I guess rent is so cheap right now at
Mm.
the Lloyd Center that it's permitted people to run what would, I guess, be impractical businesses
Yeah, it sounds
out
like
of it.
Portland. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a storefront at a cost that's not cost prohibitive,
Yeah.
and so people, I guess, are really doing some interesting experiments as far as what their storefront business is. So it's kind of becoming this other kind of mall. This, like, I guess it would be a cross between an art fair and a mall. Basically, it's more like a permanent art fair kind of situation. Which is interesting. I mean, if they would push that angle harder and get more, local craftspeople in there, it could be a nice alternative. I mean, Portland kind of has a history of being a little short on craft spaces, warehouse,
Yeah.
dirty spaces. Like it's a great place
Yeah.
to come and, run a, advertising agency or your computer, kind of
Right. The
small
tech
business
and all that. Yeah.
and techie stuff. But it's been notorious even when we first arrived. I mean, like
When did you arrive? What year?
2011.
Okay. Yeah. I was what, in my early mid 20s, and that was a prime kind of artsy area. But I feel like a lot of people then did so many shows in their houses and all those things
Yeah,
where it
well, it's
was,
just finding like a studio space, like so
yeah,
many, where, like if you're swinging a hammer, that was a problem. Like, no noise or no dust. And it was
yeah,
just coming from Philly, where there was this glut of abandoned warehouse space from,
right,
the
right.
deterioration of manufacturing. It was easy to get a studio. I mean, they were a dime a dozen.
Hmm.
But Portland didn't really have that same history and doesn't have that same infrastructure. And so there just wasn't the plethora of studio options. I mean, that was a large
Yeah.
degree why we opened up our studio building was there wasn't any other options. And
Oh, so you guys own your studio building?
I wish we owned it.
Oh,
We rent it and then
okay.
subleased out the space.
I didn't
So
know that. That's cool. Well, at
we
least you
had
can
to
sublease.
rent an 11,000 square foot building in order to get the studio space we needed, and then we rent out
Okay.
the difference basically.
Did you have to partition your own build inside, or was it already
Yeah, built all
partitioned?
the walls, did all the electric,
Wow.
everything. I mean, took an
Okay.
empty open warehouse and cut it into 40 studio spaces, basically.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. I thought, okay, that's really cool. So you've been there since 20?
12. Well, my wife started up in 12, and
Okay.
I think in 13 I came in and built out the wood shop in the front half of the building.
Okay. Yeah.
Tapes on the floor and extension cords, and people were paying us rent for that.
Don't step on my cord. Yeah.
Yeah, and then eventually, we got the walls up, and now it's rather established and fleshed out. But yeah, it was a slow crawl, still DIY in terms of the amount of resources we had to throw at it.
And we'll be right back.
Are you looking for pots for your spring repotting? Well, come on down to Kevin Ferris's moving sale of pottery at invivobonsai.etsy.com and enter the code BTP26 for 15% off of your whatever pot Kevin has for sale that I'm doing on my Etsy. I've got them all on there already, or you can message me directly and I will give you the same discount. And so they're all on my website, and we'll link it in the show notes.
And now back to our show. My good friend who's also my tattoo artist. He's over off of Sandy, and shout out to Tiger Lily Tattoos. I don't know if you've seen them, but they've been there a long time. Right up the street from what's the theater off of Sandy? I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but he told me many years back that there was an article he read about a guy, I think he was in Japan, that he made a small, basically had a small basement or something. Maybe it was New York or Japan, or maybe it was a Japanese person. Made a small woodworking shop where they devised a desk and a pull-out drawer to catch all the garbage, sanding pieces, woods and whatnot. And then they would just bucket it out that way because they couldn't make any mess inside the house or wherever they're at. And I was like, that just made me think of your spot where it's like, how messy was it in the beginning compared to now?
Is it a studio space?
Yeah, I think it was his own personal thing. I would love to find the article. Maybe I'll send it to you. But I just remember my friend Matt, he was saying that it was quite astonishing to read that this guy made this whole small thing to create furniture. And then he would make the furniture pieces and build them outside the space because it was just his laboratory to do the labor work, so to speak. And all that was like, wow, that'd be a trip. The confines of space only makes you more applicable to art, I guess. I don't know.
Well, space is a huge issue with art. I mean, you need space to create art, and woodworking itself is a very space heavy endeavor.
Right.
So getting copious amounts of space, at least in the urban realm, is not getting easier. That's probably where the costs are hitting everyone, I think, the hardest, at least in my world. Like the cost of studio space has been
right
something that is not definitely tracked level. It's gone up considerable over the years.
Is that why you've leaned more into, I don't want to say lean more, but is that why you also do bonsai tables or specific tables in that nature? Maybe they're nightstands or something that way because it's more approachable for smaller spaces if need be.
How do you mean in terms of
building and
or
a building and then access to those for being able to move around easier? If you're building a smaller table, building those tables inside the space you have compared to a huge table for a furniture piece.
I mean, I build what people hire me to build.
Oh, okay.
That's a big table or a bonsai table. I mean, I build bonsai tables because I enjoy bonsai and I enjoy the artistry that goes into the tables. It's a lot easier on my back as well as a kind of side benefit. But in terms of practicality of space, it doesn't really enter into that. It's just I make do with what I have. But I just enjoy servicing the bonsai community, out of my own love for the, art form, and also allows a creativity you don't often get in furniture.
Yeah, I mean, I always try to tell people if I'm teaching a class or holding a lecture that, most people who do bonsai are trying to find our own personalities in our trees and how they look like us sometimes, or how they have the energy of us. Does that same thing come off when you're doing a table or your own trees for you?
As myself?
Yeah, or do you always have some of your personality in the table that you make for somebody?
I think inevitably some degree. I mean, it's like a signature. We all kind of write the way we write, and it's intuitive, and nobody can really copy it because you
Right.
lose that kind of intuitive flow and it just feels constrained. So I think there is a way of working and design that I lean towards. But then also I have to be somewhat flexible in that because, being in business and servicing a diverse community, I get requests, spanning the spectrum from absolute traditional to complete avant-garde and everything in between. And so I kind of have to be able to deliver wherever the client falls on that spectrum, or you tend to eliminate potential business in the process as
Mm.
well. And then I think it's interesting. Each presents its own challenge. I mean, a super traditional stand is a technical uh, challenge to build.
Right.
So, I mean, it can be a lot of fun to put one of those together because it's, really intricate and very detailed and they look stunning when they're produced. But yeah, every little hiccup shows. And then, some of the wilder stuff can be fun too because it's, you get to experiment a little more. A lot of times, maybe have a little bit less of a roadmap.
Mm.
I might give a client a rough sketch, sometimes very rough sketch, like, epitome
Yeah.
of your napkin sketch. And then there's the faith where they're like, all right, go, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's not a bonsai related thing, but I'm building a display cabinet for a guy right now. And I submitted a scale drawing that was colored and everything. And he came to me after paying the deposit and he was like, I still don't really understand the drawing you sent, but I trust you. Well,
At least he's
that's
honest.
where we need to be.
Yeah,
That's
right.
perfect. I
Right.
appreciate your honesty, and I won't let you down. But
Right.
yeah, like there's that trust that like I'm not going to give you something horrible. Like I tell my son, like when we're going out to a new restaurant or something, and there's
Mm.
some weird food on the table, and I'm like, nobody, no culture, no cuisine makes food because it tastes bad. I mean, every food out there is made because somebody thinks it tastes great.
Yeah.
So you can kind of generally, and while that might, I don't like stinky cheese. And so, somebody who's
Yeah.
into that and makes some wonderful stinky cheese, may not be up my alley, but I feel like everything's worth an attempt because, someone thinks this is really a tasty dish.
Yeah.
Um,
There's always something to learn from that, right?
yeah, it may look weird, it may seem unusual, but somebody thought this was a great idea and really loves it, Um,
That's why I like talking to artists like yourself and like, Benjamin Keating. I don't know if you know who that is. Him and I had a chat a while back and saw him at
yeah,
Nationals. Just little things you'll say just like that specific, oh, food isn't made, blah, blah, blah. I was like, man, y'all have really good sense about those things. And it makes me jealous sometimes because
oh,
it just seems to come so natural in relation to this artistic ability, especially with speech sometimes too, because
maybe. I don't know if it's the artist or it's just the parent. Yeah. Trying to know where his food down a 9-year-old's throat can,
yeah, my daughter is 3.5 and it's like, what do you want? Not that, not that, not that. Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
It's a whole, you've been there, it's like,
Yeah, a buddy of mine, he said once, like his kids were asked, what's for dinner? And his response was free food.
I should use that. My daughter would be like, what? I'm like, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, I
Over
think they need to
here.
be a little older than 3 to get that one. But,
Right.
for a
Yeah.
teenager, that does ring true.
Yeah.
But
I think my dad said something to that sort one time. What's for dinner? He's like, I don't know. Are you going to pay me?
yeah, no, exactly.
um, you know, talking about big shows, you just were at Nationals. I know you personally took me over to look at your tables over there, which are great. How does that for you? Like, how does seeing those tables used in a way either you thought they were going to be used or completely different than what you had thought? How does that feel to you? Seeing those used in such big shows or at all? Like, does that
I mean, I
feel?
think it's great to see them in use. I
Yeah.
mean, when I'm in the shop making these things, I get pictures of the trees and we design a concept for the
Mm.
tree and I make a table for that concept and then I put that in a box and I ship it out. And a lot of times that's the last time I see that composition. Some people
Oh
send me
wow.
photos with it, but it's not always.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times at those events, that's the first time I'm seeing that tree and that table together, which is great because then, that really puts all that paperwork and all that planning to the test, and you can kind of start to, answer those questions about, was this, the right thickness for that tree, giving the visual weight,
Yeah.
and, did this work, and how do they look together? Because I mean, you can look at a picture, but when you put two tangible objects together, there's just no way to foresee exactly how that's all going to work. I mean, the nuance, all the branching and all the details of the tree, a two-dimensional image kind of obscures some of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially if they're from the East Coast, you can't just drive relatively to them 10 minutes down the road, like in Portland, right?
Even if they're from Seattle, I don't get up there to see it for the most part, So, I mean, it's a rare day. So I love going to see them. And then I love just seeing all the bonsai in general.
Right.
And then also, I like seeing people use my stands in ways that I didn't intend. I mean, once they leave my shop, I mean, it's not mine anymore. And I don't have any, restrictions on how that is used. They're an artistic tool in their own right. And if people want to use them in their own compositions in ways that, their artistic flair informs, that's, all the more power to them. Isaiah's tree that took the, what was that? The American. All-American Award.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I did not make that stand for that tree. I made a different stand for that tree. And at the last minute, he thought the accent was too tall for the stand that I had made and threw that other one in there. But you couldn't even tell that wasn't the stand made for that tree. They blended so perfectly together. I mean, it was
exactly. Yeah. If you wouldn't have told me, I would never have known.
Exactly. And then, conceiving of that stand, I never conceived of it to be used in that form. So seeing it with that tree, I see the stand in a whole new way that I would have never otherwise seen it.
Right.
I'm not even entirely sure if that stand was even made for a specific tree. It might have just been a general stand.
Like an extra piece that you had or some.
No, he wanted a stand in a certain style. And I think he might have fed me some general dimensions that fit, a breadth of trees. A lot of times clients, because one stand for one tree can become cost prohibitive pretty quickly. So a lot of times they'll send me, this is my one stunner. I want it to fit that. These are my 5 pretty good. I'm proud of these trees that kind of scale close to this, but are varied. And then we can kind of work with the dimensions to see how many of those we can fit into that package. There's going to be the ones on the outliers that aren't ideal. It may be impossible to get some to work with it, but then you can usually get, a breadth of trees that are it may be a little small, it may be a little big, but that's, splitting hairs and in a typical show setting. I mean, it's small differences. So you can get a little more mileage out of a piece.
Yeah, that's always an interesting concept because, we go to the idea of where, say, have you been to Japan real quick? Have you been to Japan?
I have not. Yeah, I went through the Tokyo airport growing up.
Okay, nice.
But that
flavor
really doesn't count for much.
You got the smells and some of the antiquated culture.
Yeah, I think I actually had food poisoning in the Tokyo airport, which was not the memory I want of Japan.
Gotta try again.
I know. I don't think the food poisoning came from Tokyo. I think I brought it with me on the plane.
Okay. I was gonna say rare option there.
Was a pretty traumatic layover for I think everyone in the terminal. But no, I hope to get there. I grew up in Indonesia, and haven't been back overseas since I left there. So it's been a dream to get back over to Asia in general.
How long were you in Indonesia?
Indonesia, 6 years.
Okay, so you were there for 6 years, and then
middle school.
Okay,
and came back to the States for high school.
Do you feel like that's kind of created you as an artist that sees the world different compared to other people who have just stayed in their one spot or just the United States?
I mean, I wouldn't use the word artist. I just think as a person.
Oh, true. Okay, yeah, for sure.
I don't think it's so specific as artist. I think, I mean, I think I see the world in a very different light than people that maybe have not seen that. I mean, in my own son, I hope to get him over there so he can see the world. I just think it's important to understand that the ways of living in the world are as infinite as everything else, that the way things are here is not normal. It's just the way things are here. There is no normal, there's just different ways of being. And I think it's important to understand those other ways. Just kind of to live a life, a fuller life, and then kind of with a greater understanding to the world and a little more appreciation on how you live.
That's true. Did you have family over there, or why were you just a little side quest in that?
Same reason a lot of people go overseas to find work. My dad needed a job, and there was a job for him there and not here. And so we went there. He did a year where he would go to Indonesia. I think it was like 6 weeks on, 3 weeks off or something.
Oh, wow.
And it just got to be too much on him with the travel. Sure. And then it was a real strain on the family because my mom would be stuck kind of on her own for 6 months or 6 weeks or whatever with 2 young kids, which was a lot. So after a year of that, we were like, okay, fuck this. Let's just all
let's go on an adventure together.
Yeah. And it was an adventure. But saw a lot of the world, saw a lot of great stuff. I mean, it was Indonesia where I was first exposed to bonsai.
I was going to ask, because they have some big stuff over there too.
They do. And what I was exposed to wasn't big. Just one of the locals was showing me how he trimmed, and it was just this like bean pole of a tree. And he was showing me how he cut the growth off, and it would one day be this fat bonsai. And, at the time, I didn't even understand this goal he was going towards. It was more of a horticultural technique that he was explaining with no real understanding of the kind of finished product. But I think it maybe did make me more receptive to bonsai as an art later when I started to see, actual bonsai trees. I kind of maybe gave him that second glance to kind of get addicted to them.
Like, oh, I saw this once before, but in a different way.
Yeah, it's like, I've heard of this thing. What are these bonsai? That's a cool thing. Yeah, it was Philadelphia where I got seriously into bonsai as a hobby. Okay. But that was much later. I mean, that was, my 20s, young adulthood.
I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the time I was looking at them for inspiration for sculpture pieces in art school.
Ceramic
I was
or
really interested out of wood, out of wood, string, plastic. They were kind of these like Mad Max apocalyptic sculptures that were kind of looked like they were being attacked by a kraken, and it was kind of like tall ship explosion meets Mad Max, maybe. All being drug underwater by a kraken and destroyed.
So did you have like HP Lovecraft posters and Mad Max playing behind you, or
only in my head?
Yeah, the things we get for inspiration are funny sometimes, just because, as you know, living so many places, I'm sure you have so many little different pockets to choose from in your own personal database. It's just like, oh, I remember seeing that, and I want to influence this more and that, and
well, it's just like being that sponge and just soaking up everything you see. It's just all kind of goes in a file somewhere and comes out later in one way or another. And that's part of, traveling is a great way to kind of get that experience. And
well, yeah, not only seeing the world as smaller, it's not as vast and big and scary, like you said. It's just open eyes and an open heart. You see more things applicable.
Well, I think the other side of that too is you realize that everyone's kind of the same in the end of the day. Live in these different places with these different climates, which influence, some people wear flip-flops and some people wear hiking boots.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everybody just wants to be comfortable and warm and happy,
For real. No, that's where they're at. It's for real. Well, going back to my question, if you've been to Japan, now knowing you've got sick in the airport, with there being such a young scene here of craftspeople like yourself and artists and all kinds of outlets, right? But specifically in our conversation being bonsai and bonsai tables and other display features. Do you think that there are those capacities that Japan does really well on the traditional approach because they have all the tables in a surplus to utilize versus here where we don't have that. So we have to kind of communicate. We need to make these and build these things. Do you think that there are positives to that and also not necessarily the benefits to anything with that? Does that make sense?
It does. I think even culturally, the Japanese kind of conception of the bonsai table, I think, is a little bit different than our own. And maybe part of that is because they have that kind of reserve of stands, that history, and so that there is more access. Although I'm not exactly sure what the individual access to bonsai stands are. Um, but the typical in Japan, the stand is really not given much more importance than a frame. It's not, it's meant to elevate the tree. It's meant to show the tree. It's meant to highlight the tree, but it's really not considered part of the tree. It's not part of the story. It's a way of showing the tree at its best and the way it's intended to be seen, but it doesn't quite cross that threshold to integrate itself into the display at large. I don't feel kind of the same way when you go to an art museum and you're looking at a Van Gogh. There was a lot of consideration to that gilded frame that it's in, or not gilded frame, or whatever frame the painting's in. But the frame is not seen as part of the painting, Like they want the frame to show the painting off well, to work with the colors, to not overpower things. But that frame's not part of the art.
Right. It's not cohesive enough to be just there.
Yeah. And I think being here and not in Japan has kind of allowed me the expressive freedom to try and integrate that stand as part of the art. And that's kind of been my big in bonsai, is to make the stand a more integral part of the story of the tree and the display. And to really create that image when you set up the display, that you're really seeing that tree in its place, whatever that might be, whatever statement you're trying to make about that tree. But to use the stand as another tool in that story rather than just a frame for that story,
Yeah. 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 Cause I have a personal bias. I definitely see yours accenting what the tree is trying to compel, or the artist with the tree and whoever you're working with is trying to tell a story about, with the accent of the, not only as a stand to be a stand, but as a part of the story, like you said. Within that, did you see the pot competition this year that ABS did at the national show?
I didn't make it over to the pot before it got taken down.
Okay. Okay. Same. So, I actually helped clean up. That's the only time I saw it.
I was stuck in my booth, so I never got over there.
Okay. Some of those pots were very like mind blowing, just in the craftsmanship in it, or craftspeopleship and things in that way. Saw one that looked like there was worms crawling all over. Like, if you were on like LSD or something, it'd be like definitely moving. But it was just like, it was like, wow, I never could see a tree in that, but I don't know how that would look. Maybe we're not there yet for it. My question is, having that pot competition, bringing awareness to potters and people doing those kind of things for the community. Would you ever want to see a stand competition, or how would that look?
I mean, that would be cool. I mean, I think that would be a big step towards, kind of raising the prominence and importance of the stand in the composition. I think it would be something that would probably happen here before it happened in Japan.
100%. Yeah.
But it does seem there is a pecking order in the bonsai world.
Yeah.
And the tree is always at the top of that list.
Right.
And then I think by default, the pot kind of gets put in second, just because the pot is an integral part of the survival of the tree. It's kind of like you're an astronaut. A spacesuit matters a lot, because that's what's keeping you alive.
Yeah.
And so there's this kind of inherent relationship with the tree and the pot where they're always kind of together in a way. And then this need to repot to as the tree grows. So there's this kind of already mandated turnover in that realm.
Right.
Whereas the stand is kind of something that the tree kind of does a little flyby once in a blue moon and lands on briefly for 3 days, and then moves on.
Right.
So it's kind of separated a little more from the composition just by the nature of the art form. That was a big challenge when I was doing the lab with the Pacific Bonsai Museum. It was just like we were designing these pieces for the museum. And pretty quickly, it kind of dawned on me, like, the tree is going to be seen at the museum, pot's going to be seen at the museum, but the stand is going to kind of get kind of pushed to the side because it just can't exist outdoors with the pot and the tree. And so it's that part of the composition is going to be severed. And it was that kind of really prompted me to try and develop a stand that can live outdoors with the tree to kind of resolve that issue, where now the stand is an integral part of the growing tree and not just this display thing.
Because you use cement, right? Because I was going to ask you.
I mean, materials are the big issue there. I mean, wood as a material is always expanding and contracting with its water absorption. And being finished indoors is a great way to kind of mitigate that movement. It still happens, but at a much softer rate than outdoors. You're getting wild extremes of movement, rot, degrade. I mean, there's a lot of problems going outside with wood. So just in the nature of materials, it's kind of pushed the stand into this kind of separate realm. So yeah, experimenting with different materials to just try and produce something that can exist with the tree. Granted, my concrete skills are not what my woodworking skills are.
Not yet.
I learned a lot of things. And even I was kind of trying to conceive of the concrete in a woodworking kind of way. I was thinking of, when you go in a parking garage and they frame out the pour with wood so you can see the wood grain on the parking garage. So I was trying to kind of create that effect with the concrete. So at least like the wooden element was still part of the display, even though it was just more of an evidence of wood rather than the actual thing, but it still kind of kept the wood alive in a way.
Does that still kind of, does that play a large part in your space now of creation, as from what you learned about doing yourself and getting out of that, I don't want to say comfort zone, but that idea of what you wanted to do different? Does that still play into factors?
I mean, I'm really interested in exploring that further.
But just
the client base hasn't been as developed at this stage of the game. I mean, I've certainly made outdoor stands since then. And they've all been a really big challenge, but have been really interesting to pursue. So like everything else, I think it's just a slow build before it maybe reaches a crescendo. But at the moment, it's the occasional little exploration. It's a really neat kind of divergent from what I normally do, in terms of both materials, engineering, and design and purpose. So, I hope to populate the world with outdoor bonsai stands and kind of.
I'd love to see it. That'd be cool.
I know it'd be neat to develop a more year-round display mode, and kind of pull display a little bit away from the show and put it more into the personal realm.
Yeah, because you've seen enough bonsai nurseries. Wouldn't it be so interesting to see tables at bonsai nurseries explicitly for the purpose of those ideas, like you said, outside of here's the wooden bench with the tables on them. Everything is the same height. Everything, it looks nice. Don't get me wrong.
I think, it might have to start to come from that is, where you have, gardens that are using it, display outdoors. But to bring that art and the display art into a more common practice would be very interesting to see. I mean, it's certainly a break from the traditional view of it. But then horticulturally, it makes a lot of sense too, because, those shows are not the best thing for those trees.
Nope.
It is hard on the tree to go inside for 3 days to do a show. So horticulturally, it does make a lot of sense. And then I think, it's just a matter of people kind of finding the personal drive. I mean, the one thing that shows will always have is the competitive nature.
Right. I win, you don't win. Yeah.
But I think us having that little bit of cultural freedom from the Japanese model kind of does give us leeway to play with these ideas in a way that I don't think are as easy to do in Japan, because you have to get over that hurdle of tradition before you can experiment with these forms and these other doing things. Whereas here we're not a blank slate. But I think we don't have the same hurdles because we don't have the same tradition.
Yeah, and I think it goes into the hierarchical structure too. You have the senpai kohai relation thing, being that my wife talks about all the time, with just how she relates to her students in her Japanese teaching classes. It's that difference of how I work with non-Japanese people in classes or work environments, right? You don't have that same correlation because it's culturally significant, right? But I've seen even that changing too with the younger generation coming up where they're kind of getting tired of that habitual, not that it's bad, or anything wrong with it, but they're just kind of like, what else is there to get out of this? Ways to connect. How can we do it better?
I do think Japanese bonsai too is going to be forced to grow and change here going into the next 30 years. I mean, I talk to Japanese friends and, who aren't bonsai enthusiasts. And the general, I think, view of bonsai is this kind of old person's art form in Japan. It's 100% not seen as something that young people pursue or care about. But you do start to see younger professionals in Japan being a little more experimental with how they show their trees, not just even in a matter of designing their trees, but their collaborations and how they present them and where is it okay to put this tree, engaging with, product lines and, displaying bonsais with fancy sneakers and cars and just kind of looking at it in new ways and using them in new ways, which is great. I mean, that is,
Yeah. And that's the whole thing with survival. Because if you go over there, you'll see there's a lot more foreign apprentices than there are Japanese. Just in my own personal availability to have gone and see certain people, Mr. Suzuki, Mr. Kobayashi, those people, not to name drop, but it's those ideas where I saw more international apprentices that could speak some Japanese, but not homegrown Japanese people doing it. Because my personal thing is like when I told my in-laws when I first met them 10 years ago, I was like, oh yeah, I'm into bonsai. They're like, what? How old are you? That was their first question. I was like, does it matter? Does it? Like, well, in Japan, and it's like, oh, okay. And it's one of those things where you still have pockets of it in the States, being on the East Coast as I am now, but also having been in the Midwest. There's a weird balance for me coming from the Oregon where there, you have Ryan Neal, you have Hagedorn, you have all these people centrally in that area, little Willamette Valley pocket. And then going out of that and seeing, oh, it's not everywhere yet. It's not this identity of almost like a punk ethos, I would call it from my skateboarding terminology, where it's like, just be on the fringes and make our own thing. And it will just kind of integrate everything else as well. It's starting because you can see it in the shows now. You can see it in other things, but I don't think there's anything bad with the, not that you said it was bad, but anything bad with the idea of traditional. But I think the point where it can become detrimental is when it's not growing, like you're saying, whether it be stands or something that way too. Because, the reason I was asking about stands versus Japan versus here, I don't know of many people creating stands anymore in Japan. I haven't looked for deep dive, but I don't see as many people trying to integrate new stands or those ideas because there's so many in surplus, just like trees. Are they just resurfacing them and restanding them when need be? Is that a thing?
I think there's probably a bit of that. I think part of it too is the cultural importance of the history of the antique.
True. Yeah, for sure.
I think there is, same with the antique pots you see, where there's this high value given to the antique pot, the antique patina, which plays into the age of the tree and trying to create that age.
Yeah.
I think there's the value given to the age of the object, whether that is the pot, the tree, the stand in Japan. And then America being a newer nation, a little less, deprived of that cultural history, especially in the terms of bonsai. I mean, we're bonsai in America. We can trace it back to maybe 1940, maybe a little before, but not much, like there wasn't a lot of known bonsai practicing in 1890 here in America.
Good point. Yeah.
I've yet to see the documentation of that,
Where's Aaron Packard when you need him? Come on, find it.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think Lincoln was, getting bonsai trees from the Japanese consulate, or anything of that nature. So everything has to be new. And so I don't think the antique really gets the opportunity to be as valued here in that way. I mean, it's still the antique pots are highly prized. But then you see a lot of new contemporary pot makers that, are really highly sought after. I would say more so than the antiques. When I go to these, national shows or whatever, people are swarming the new pot makers, not the people selling the antique pots.
Right.
I just think there's a general difference in just how we view things here. And that's kind of always been the magic of bonsai is it's, it didn't even originate in Japan. I mean, Japan took the art form and made it their own, and
from
called
China,
it bonsai. But I mean, they
China
were
got
pulling
it from
from
somewhere
Penjin.
else. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it maybe goes back even, I mean, who knows how far back it goes. But then you look at each region and the types of trees they produce. I mean, the trees coming out of Taiwan and Indonesia are not the same trees that are coming out of Japan. It's not the same aesthetic. It's not the same style. A lot of the southern tropical regions that have a more healthy year-round growing season, you're getting these massive trees because they're able to produce them.
Right.
But then, like, their aesthetic is then built around that size, and not everybody can achieve that kind of girth and size because the climate doesn't allow. But it's just kind of like whatever your natural surroundings are tend to heavily influence the art of bonsai because it is, being horticultural, it is so reliant on our environment.
Right, because you go with what you know, right?
Well, you go with what you can grow.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you even in America, if you look at the southern states versus up here in the more northern regions, there's people who dream of being able to grow a Japanese maple but can't, and so they have their collections of privets or something that's more conducive to their environment, and every region kind of has its specialty, and some places don't get the cold temperatures to have blue spruce, and so they're having to pull from a different stock. But that does influence the art form because a Yamadori blue spruce is going to be one specific type of bonsai. A seed grown tropical is going to be a different kind of bonsai. And just as you shift the tree and you shift the species, you're getting a different product kind of just inherent in that, which is the magic. And it can't. And I think that's like the great boon for, the history and tradition of Japan is a wonderful jumping off point and a great base of knowledge that I think is important to have. But I think if you just stop there, you're not going anywhere with it. And it just wither and die. I mean, the same way if you don't repot your tree for 20 years, it's not going to be healthy.
Unless you're Dan Robinson. It's his magic.
Maybe, yeah. Some of those trees aren't that healthy, though. I think that's some of the magic of it, too.
The gnarliness.
He has this wonderful ability to make the most kind of tortured little specimens I've ever seen. They're kind of magical in that regards. So
my co-host, Ryan, he actually studied with Dan off and on for 4 years. He was going to UW up there and would go, I would say intermittently. I can't speak for him how often he did, but he would go do that kind of a impromptu apprenticeship, so to speak, or as he's told me. I'm like, oh, so he saw a lot of those trees and worked with a lot of them for over 4 years. And I was like, that's a lot of time spent with Dan and all those stories. And just it shows in how Ryan applies his own work with whatever he's doing in relation to bonsai or the art form. Because I'm like, I
really admire the freedom he takes to his trees.
Yeah, Dan just like doesn't care. He's like, he cares, but he's just like, that's my thing. Yeah.
Well, it's this. He doesn't take himself too seriously.
No, not at all. Yeah.
He allows it to just kind of be. And I think that's a really wonderful. Nick Lynn's had the same approach where it's just like he didn't let the seriousness constrain the art. He was willing to experiment, willing to take chances, and willing to screw up.
Yeah.
And I think that is critical to creating good art. It's also critical to creating bad art, but I don't think you can have good art without bad art.
Yeah. And some good art is bad to other people and some bad is good to other people,
Well, that's too. I mean, it's all subjective, but like without mistakes, you don't learn.
Yeah. That makes me think of an idea I had today where we get those ideas, driving to the store for your kid to get chicken nuggets or something, whatever. And I thought of a table idea. Maybe someone's approached you with it or not, but has there ever been a time where you could think of or that you've thought about or someone's approached you with, or the idea is creating a table that's half finished, and then the person who gets the table does something in the form of like wood carving, like you would on dead wood carving, to add a different part of life to it down the road, where maybe it's like decaying a little bit, and then there's a part that's finished and then unfinished, and at the end, it's kind of like their own ethos of working on it that could tie into a tree differently. I don't know how that would look, but
Yeah, I never had that have that come up. The trees, it's the art form that gets kind of inherited and passed down. I mean, you have these trees that have been through numerous artists over the years.
right.
But yeah, in my practice, it's always been the table's done, it's done.
Yeah.
It's more finished product rather than the kind of evolution that you see in bonsai. So I would be curious to see how that evolution would play out in the
Right.
long run. But yeah, I've never.
It made me think of the Dan Robinson, was it 2021, 2018? I think it was 21, where Dan had like a cut inlet in his table where the pot sunk level with the table. So you couldn't really tell where the pot was and it looked like it's in the table. I was thinking, what if there's something that could be done with a table where it's hand carved on one side or the right side, left side's finished nice and wood bent and stained. And it kind of flows with this piece of deadwood up to I don't know, that's some random idea I get sometimes. Call it ADD, I call it a superpower, whatever. But
Kind of like those deadwood frames where the deadwood.
yeah, like Dave Cutchins does. Yeah.
Defined.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar. Yeah. Similarly that too. Cause I was like, is there room for that? Is there,
That's
that's
kind of influencing how I just did a root stand. My first one.
Yeah. How was it?
I was kind of, thinking about using kind of more finished elements with the root stand. So you have this kind of natural, root evocative stand, but then it's not capable of supporting itself and having to prop it up with these kind of more obviously man-made elements. It was kind of my kind of approach to that one.
I think I saw those photos on Instagram. I was like, that's really cool. That's one question too. Where's the root stand fall into everything? You don't see a lot of them made in America. I mean, I know Sean Smith makes some, and yeah.
So I think that's the big impediment to the root stand.
I feel like there's a lot in Philippines and maybe Indonesia. I think I've seen a lot come out of there. I don't know why. But
it may explain for the labor. I mean, I was talking to Andrew the other day about him, and he was saying in Japan that nobody is carving them anymore. Yeah. And if you can find one, even most people are not willing to sell them because there's so few on the market that they're just kind of hoarded. Just because it's unlikely you're going to get the opportunity to buy another one. And there's a high labor quotient to them. I mean, a lot of carving, and that does produce, higher costs. And then it's kind of it's a risky endeavor. I mean, using wood at that scale, checks and cracks are kind of part of the game when you get wood that big. And on those little delicate root stands, one inopportune crack can kind of structurally
just fold on itself. Yeah.
Yeah, it can destroy the whole piece.
How many hours
carving and not knowing if this is going to be structural in the end is kind of a dangerous proposition, especially when you're investing that kind of time in it.
How many hours did you put in yours?
I have no clue.
Okay. Long enough to know it was a long time.
It's a good while. But it was just kind of something in the background that I just kept pulling stuff out of. I'd go in and you started out drilling holes, and then I had a couple of just kind of like burr bits, and I would just hog out material. And then I went in with a saw and started cutting off arms, where I felt there was too much noise, and kind of kept removing stuff until I felt there was enough air in there where it didn't feel too heavy.
Oh yeah. Less congestion. That makes sense. Yeah.
Because that plethora of arms, you don't see, because the whole thing about the root stands is seeing the arms kind of coming up. And if it's a solid mass, it's too big for the bonsai visually. You need the delicacy of the root, quote unquote, look to really work. And that was really apparent, as I started removing material. Initially, it was like, this is like the worst thing you could put with the bonsai. This is way too visually heavy. Then as it got lighter and lighter, it was like, oh, I could see a tree actually going on this at a point.
What is there a specific wood that you think is best to work with if somebody wanted to kind of take on that venture?
I don't know. I mean, that one I did out of walnut, and walnut again is always a great bonsai wood. It's dark, pretty easy to carve. I think one boon on the walnut, because sanding is a big time suck in the root stands. And I was hoping to achieve, because you don't pull roots out of the ground that are sanded to 220. And so I was really trying to achieve something a little more natural with the root stand. So I was kind of going for a more deadwood kind of feel rather than the sanded kind of polished look.
Perfect. Yeah.
And so I was kind of treating the root stand in traditional bonsai ways of creating deadwood. And so once I was done with the carving, I hit it with a blowtorch, kind of char a lot of that wood and get rid of any kind of evidence of the carving and the tool marks. And it worked really good to kind of bring it to a better sanded, aesthetic look. It wasn't as ragged, but then I could go in and wire brush the charred areas and get quite a nice finish.
Right.
But the color contrast between the burnt walnut and the regular walnut was minimal enough where it really worked well with that wood.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I got a big block of acacia that's a little redder than walnut that I'm going to try and do some root stands out of. These would just be spec. They don't have current buyer for them.
Okay. Yeah.
Which would be nice because I'm really hoping to push it further. Yeah. Like I really want to accentuate the imbalance of the whole root stand. But we'll see if I can burn in the same way with the acacia as I did with the walnut. I'm a little nervous right now that won't integrate as well with the wood tone.
Yeah.
And it would stand out a little more, which may make it not work in the same way. So I'm a little curious to see how that goes.
With the root stand, you're getting a big hunk of piece of wood, right?
Yeah.
And then are you turning the wood to get a lot of the bark off and go to more deeper wood, heartwood, or are you just doing it by hand the whole time?
Just doing it by hand. I mean, on the walnut one, I started with an actual trunk of wood, so there was a natural shape to it to begin with. It had the natural edge and everything. The acacia is a squared off beam. It's like maybe a 13 by 13 beam of wood. But it's just kind of, I'll probably start that with a chainsaw over turning and kind of cut a rough form with the chainsaw and then go in with the drill and kind of start to open it up. A lot of that I found it just like the random creation, I think worked best with that, where like I didn't kind of go in with the concept. Yeah. I just started kind of pulling material away. And then at a point you start to see the natural growth and grain of the tree, and you could start to kind of follow that with your carving.
Would you ever improvise, say, Jackson Pollock, I had his splatter scripts. Would you ever how certain people will pick something like throwing a dart at the wall and that's the thing it will get? Would you ever do like a splatter of a paint and then have that be your line of drill marks to where those land as more of a, not your concept, but just how it fell with gravity in place of
on the root stand?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost what I'm doing. I'm not thinking about the holes I'm drilling.
Okay. If you close your eyes or just like
pretty much going in there as much as, I mean, there's so much material to remove.
Right.
It doesn't really matter where the hole goes because there's 7,000 more to follow.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So it's really just coming in at every angle and just punching through to get to something that you can then kind of start to curate and work out. Like, okay, what are the lines that are going to go through this thing? But I mean, that's the beauty of bonsai, is working from the found object. I mean, all bonsai, we're starting with something that we're having to build on. Right. We're not I mean, maybe from seed, you're creating something completely in your own vision, but by and large, you're starting with the trunk, And for me, with the live edge and the woodwork, it's the same game. It's like I'm given a problem that's already started and I have to then finish it. But it's nice to have that kind of jumping off point to kind of inspire the work. It's something I really enjoy.
Well, it almost kind of goes back to the lab project, right? And its ethos of you had the 3 separate times together, right? Because one was tree first, then one of them was pot first, and then one of them was the stand first, right? And they made those things in accordance to what was first, right?
Yeah. It's interesting to respond to something rather than, to start from nothing.
Right.
So it's always kind of fun to kind of get that inspiration from the found object.
that's with all those things and the people you've worked with, like Ryan Neal with that heavy cantilevered. I remember the one I saw when I was at Ryan's years back, that huge one. I think he put in metal posts or counterbalanced weight on a cantilevered.
Was it the one for blue or?
I think so. Ryan's like, check this. Yes. Yeah. Then I was like, wow, you can't see it, but if you know it's there, then you know it's there. But if you don't know it's there, it's one of those things. It's like trick of the mind or the eye. Do you have a feeling of how people see your work now from working with such people like Ryan or doing lab project and doing all these artistic ideas that are maybe outliers? Do you feel like people kind of put you in this box, or how do you feel what do you feel people get wrong about you and your art?
I mean, I hope they don't put me in a box.
Right. I mean, I don't, but yeah.
Yeah. If they do, I do my best to keep myself out of the box. I do get pigeonholed as someone who's kind of breaking from tradition, but that's, if you look at the breadth of things I've done, that's not the only thing I do. I like to explore. And so I'm not strictly opposed to anything unless I think aesthetically it's a bad idea.
Right.
But, in terms of, the dial of tradition to not, I don't see myself as on any part of that scale. I kind of see myself as all over the scale and hope to stay there. I don't want to be one thing at all.
Right. Because that's limiting, right? Because then it's like, oh, but you only see me as that way, but I can do more, but you're only expecting me to do one thing or something.
Well, everything offers its own interests, and I guess maybe it's the artist's curse, but you get bored easily. And same way, I have just no interest in kind of production runs, doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of contemporary furniture, people have their line of a few pieces and they can do them in 3 different woods and you can get them in 2 different sizes and that's what they do. But the thought of going into the shop every day and making the same piece over and over again, I mean, kind of like a band, playing their hit song from 20 years ago still.
Yeah.
To me, that just sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
This kind of Groundhog Day kind of just kind of repeating your hits over and over and over again. I really value that, every project is a new challenge and a new piece. And, I might pull from past designs, but I am somewhat trying to push those further, refine them more, and reinvent the wheel in some sort of new way. Which keeps
I was going to say, because you know what you want to do different now in relation to, you already built that one thing. How can I twist it? Or how can I exchange this? And right.
Yeah. And I'm never happy with one thing completely. I mean, there's always something that I could have done better,
I mean, how do you know when a project's finished completely?
I mean, at a point it's done.
Okay. Like physically, like I'm just done.
Yeah. Sometimes it comes to that. I mean, there is the goal we're going for. I mean, usually, especially with commissioned work, there's a drawing, that has initiated the commission.
Right.
Few people are willing to throw down a check on air. They want to see a plan. So I generally have an idea where I'm going, and so when you know where you're going, it's pretty easy to know when you got there, but then sometimes you have to take little detours along the way and do things you didn't plan on. But I think generally speaking, I don't know, it's like pornography, when you see it, when something's done, it just feels done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it hits that point where it's like, if I do anything else to it, it's not going to make it better.
Right.
You may move laterally, but at a point it just becomes noise and fluff. And then at a point it starts to degrade. You think of it in painting, you're mixing colors, if you just keep throwing colors in there, eventually you're just going to get brown and it's just going to be,
yeah. It's like make dirt again. There you go.
Yeah. You can overwork something to death. So there's certainly something to be said to just kind of doing what needs to be done and stopping and moving on to the next thing rather than just kind of completely overwork something to death.
Have you ever halfway stopped working on a table and finished it later?
Yeah.
I mean, for personal or like if you have backstock, because I don't know if you ever plan on renting tables out or if that's even a thing anymore in the States, because I know that's what they do in Japan. Most people own something and they rent it or something in that way. I guess it's a two-part question. Have you done it and are you going to rent them out?
Yeah, I mean, that market hasn't presented itself in the States.
Yeah.
Not yet. There is one logistical hurdle to that is stands tend to get rather scuffed up at shows.
Yeah.
And renting stands out, there would be that point, like how often would they have to be refinished and how would that work into the pricing in renting? And like, at what point is that cost effective? If you could make a stand and rent it out and never have to touch it again, I could see that working. But if you're having to refinish that stand every time you rent it out because it gets scuffed up and the next person wants it pristine, that's just more of a spicy meatball in terms of labor costs of that.
Yeah, because each time you have to refinish, it's more and more, right?
It's just, it's more and more, and it's difficult. And also, the only way to refinish a piece a lot of times is to sand it down. And so eventually you're running out of material.
Maybe that's a whole art concept in itself, degradation.
Yeah. But yeah, that market never has been much at play here in the States, possibly just because there isn't that backlog of stands to really make it feasible.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough stands to rent. There's just the market is just so lean.
Or enough stand makers, right? I mean,
there's just not
David Needle, other people.
Of stands that can be put out there. And then I think that again comes down to that cultural view of the stand being a little bit more than a frame. I think people want something that's a little more integrated into the whole piece rather than just like, oh, this one fits, We got
to do that competition idea, make it happen.
I think there's a cultural kind of interpretation there that plays into that.
Right.
But certainly in the course of work, I mean, like, I try and keep a number of pieces going in the studio at all times, and I'll either flesh that out with spec work, or if there's, only a few commission pieces at one time, I'll build a few on the side. But sometimes, especially on the spec stuff that doesn't have a customer or a due date, if they hit a hurdle, I'll set them on a shelf, sometimes for a very long time. And some I'll get back to and finish, and some are still sitting on that shelf. I was
going to say, with those breaks in those certain times you've had, does it give you more of a better response to the finished product after you've taken a break from what you started?
I mean, I think you come to it in a different way. Are you familiar with that curved leg stand I did that was black with the red cherry inside? It was at the National, I think last National, I believe it was there.
I want to say yes. I'm a big fan of yours. Obviously, you know that. I told you that before, but I want to say yes. I can't picture it right now, but I know it's coming to mind.
For all the people who are audio on this will do nothing for you.
We'll post it in the link to the show notes. Oh yeah, that one. Yeah. That one's amazing.
Glare away.
It was like a fingernail moon kind of deal. Yeah.
But that was the second of a pair that I started together, and the first one they're both white oak.
And that was commission.
What?
That was commission or personal?
That was spec.
Okay.
Both were actually, was one a commission and then I did another as spec? I'm not sure. That might have been the case. One might have been a commission and I did a second one as spec. But it's a very difficult stand to make. And the initial one kind of just took precedent, and I pushed that one through to finish and had the pieces for that sitting out. And the first one was a lot more, I guess, tame in spirit. Like I fumed the white oak, so it was kind of a chocolate brown. I had a walnut inside. It wasn't as aggressive as like the black and the red. It was just a really intense combo. But then when COVID hit, it was kind of like, well, work kind of it dried up a little bit before it floated again during the pandemic. So I pulled that one out as kind of like, well, here's something I should do. But I feel like kind of my place at that time really influenced how that one went. I mean, if you look at the two next to each other, they're very different pieces.
Right.
But they're almost made with the exact same parts. But I always saw that as much more kind of aggressive and much more intense, which I think was kind of flowing from the times. I went ahead and oxidized the oak black rather than fume it a softer brown, and pairing the black with the red live edge. It's just kind of very high contrast, high intensity piece that was very much kind of my headspace at the time. But I think that's kind of how that plays out most, is that, I grow and change as an artist as we go forward. So when I set these things on the shelf and get back to them, I'm not the same person that started it.
Right.
And so I'm not going to finish it usually in the same way. If there are choices left to be made, I might be making different choices than I would have made when I initially started it. And in that one, that came down to kind of color choices. But then sometimes if there's room for design, changes, I might add those. It just kind of depends on where I am at the time.
And who knows what those ones that you start or finish later, it's like, oh, I really want to get rid of this one now. I like it too much,
Yeah.
There's
like a carved maple stand I have in the shop right now that I was trying to get done. I was doing a couple other carved stands and something caught funny on the router and it exploded on me.
Oh, man.
So I glued it back together. But when you're working on those carved stands, you're setting up the machines for each task. And if one falls behind on the production, it takes so much effort to get it back up into kind of the line with everybody else that it just gets behind, because you're like, I don't want to have to set up all these processes that I've already set up for these just to get it to the same place as these. So you just ditch it. And that one's still waiting for its day. But it's a nice stand. It'll be a really nice one when it's done. So I don't really want to throw it away at the same time.
I mean, winter's coming, right? You need to stay warm.
Yeah, it is.
That sounds so labor intensive, comparatively to other things. It makes me want to ask the question, going back to your own history, what jobs have you had that made you capable, or that has made you available and capable to do this work? Like what things have made you be able to work these long hours or do this labor intensive work? Like what did you do before you did art or went to school for art?
I mean,
there's always something that started something, right?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had a ton of jobs outside of what I do. I worked at the art museum in Philly for 7 years before moving to Portland.
Okay.
And that was more of a cultural exposure. That's where I really kind of got steeped in furniture, just kind of seeing their furniture collection.
Okay.
And I got a lot of exposure to furniture history.
I mean, I would assume they would have Nakashima because he's right up the road, so to speak.
They had some Nakashimas. They had a whole shaker wing, a lot of colonial stuff.
Yeah.
They had a pretty good Asian wing as well. Some really nice Chinese pieces. They had a pretty good breadth. It was kind of your typical large museum sample pack. They weren't heavily committed. Probably their colonial collection was their, biggest. But they had a nice round kind of medium collection in a lot of other arenas. And then what you see on display at a museum is a small fraction of what they actually have.
Oh, of course, the basement's where everything's at, right?
Yeah, or remote storage building or wherever. So working at the I was able to see the backstock and got to experience more of the collection that way. Before that, I worked in
I was going to say, it had to be some long hours, right?
It depended. The long hours were every night I'd run the truck up to New York to pick up donations.
Okay.
And those were long days.
Back and forth,
You didn't know what you were getting into. You'd be going into the middle of Manhattan and having to pick up delicate art and deal with Manhattan at the same time. So they were all kind of a bit of a shit show, but then kind of that was always the fun. Trying to navigate too many people, too many cars.
Pull over and get a hot dog.
with high value art at the same time. I think the hours just come from the passion for the interests. I think just my own personal interest in what I'm doing. It doesn't
You just lose yourself kind of
the
deal.
hours.
Yeah.
I know when I get exhausted or tired or just kind of, a little spent, I drop back in the hours, as far as what I'm putting in.
Sorry. I was going to ask you, what's your self-care routine? Because that's the thing I've been thinking about, being that you are a parent, your kid is older now, but also you're a family person as well. Like, how do you balance your self-care with your family time and your work?
Well, I think as you prioritize, family time for me is important. And, if that means I have to miss work, then,
So be it. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
try and find a way to make that happen. I mean, there's sometimes you just can't.
Yeah.
But I do want to be there as much as I can, because you don't get many years, with a kid before it's all said and done with. And then I think it's important that everybody has a hobby. I think it's important to be rounded. I mean, it's nice to have a job you love. But there was a time where I felt like that was kind of all I had. And it feel a little lopsided on the work life. And sometimes
your hobby turned into your full time, right?
Yeah, I had a hobby and then it turned into a full-time business, but it wasn't replaced by another hobby. And so you kind of are without a hobby, and then work becomes a hobby, and then work becomes everything. And at a point, it can become too much and maybe a little too oppressive. And so I've recently had to kind of develop new hobbies. I still do bonsai as a hobby, but it just doesn't ring the same, doing it on,
Yeah.
doing it just for the love of it. So, I've been getting into the fossils lately, which has been kind of a nice break from everything to just do something that isn't grouped into the rest of the batch and doesn't produce any economical benefit.
Right. Except your own pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah. Although that's starting to change. I've started to make some money off the fossils.
You're a capitalist at heart.
I'll lose that one too, which would be a real conundrum, because it's hard finding a hobby. So having to find another one would be a real pain in the ass.
I guess next would be geodes or something.
I don't know. I'm not a mineral guy. I don't know. I don't.
I mean, Oregon's got a lot. You got the high desert to the.
It does, but they don't turn me on. Yeah. They really don't. My son likes the shiny things. I think for me, they're just too. There's not the variation in them that you see.
Yeah.
And the bonsai and the trees and the woodwork. It's like I can get a walnut board and no two of them. I mean, you get the crosscut mill walnut that every board looks the same, but you start getting slabs of material. Everyone has its own character, has its own personality. I mean, there's like, surprise, I cut open a log. Sometimes it's the most amazing figure I've seen. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's weird, but then kind of extraordinary in the weirdness. And so there's that kind of variety in it. And then, with the fossils, it's like I'm getting the same species, but they're all individuals too. So everyone kind of has its own personality as well. Whereas like my wife does jewelry, and it's just like, gold is gold. I mean, nobody's ever said this is the most amazing 14 karat gold I've seen in my life. Look at the quality versus this 14. Like 14 karat gold is 14 karat gold is 14 karat gold. It's
extra
just
shiny.
It doesn't have a personality in that kind of way where there's no individualism in it.
Right.
So like for me, the crystals kind of start to fall into that realm.
Could you substitute, geodes for the money crop, and then your fossils for pleasure?
Maybe, yeah, that would work. Right now, I bring home the crystals and give them to my son so he doesn't poo-poo the fossil trips too much. I'm like, hey, man, these are basically bribes. You're like, fossils aren't so bad. Look, they get you these shiny things.
That's awesome.
That's been my take there.
Yeah, I've been, I recently got back into skateboarding. I did that for a majority of my life, and then I hadn't done it for probably 12, 13 years. I broke my elbow last time. I was just going down Grand Avenue in Southeast Portland. Just trying not to hit a homeless person. I ended up going into a hole probably, 6 inches in diameter. Didn't see it because it was in the dark, and just broke my elbow. I was like, cool. I need to work, and I can't miss work. Doing construction at the time. And, hobbies are important. I think that's where, there's that line, which I'm finding because I've taught classes now with bonsai. I've started things. I've helped create communities in certain small aspects of things. And it becomes that line where it's like, okay, am I still having fun with this? Because I am, but is it as fun as when I wasn't as applied as I am now? Right. And I feel like that's the same for you, if I can say that, in
I just
relation
think,
to
yeah, you need
like,
to give yourself that breathing space to come back to it.
that's how self-care, right? Because it's like, oh, I need to work out, eat better, drink water, and, have
Yeah.
sanity,
I mean, that's an important part of it all too. I mean, as I'm getting older, it's physically taxing to do the woodwork, and I've had to make, stretching and strengthening an important part of my work practice, or I get injured.
Say, can you run us through, like, me or the people listening to this? Can you run us through a day to day what it looks like for you? Like, I've never heard a specific woodworker like yourself. How does that work for you? Like, what do you do? Do you wake up, have your coffee, stretch it out, and go work, or what do you do?
I do most of my stretching at night.
Okay.
But I'll wake up, have my coffee, and have some oatmeal and run in, and do the work, but then come home. And generally, after I get my son to sleep, I'll do, I do a lower back trouble runs in my family. So most of my stretching's kind of geared towards that.
Mhm.
But then core work is a big part of maintaining that. And so, I do routine core work, and then stretch out my hamstrings, because tight
Yeah.
hamstrings are the genetic issue that's been leading to back
Yeah.
problems in my family.
Yeah.
So keeping
The
those
push
loose
pull. Yeah.
goes a long ways. And then, I mean, I get injured. It happens a lot. I mean, woodworking, I would say, is any high intensity, you're going to push something too hard. Um, and so the PT work will kind of work into that. I mean, right now I've got what they call runner's knee.
Yeah.
Um, and that's actually from fossils.
I can't
Ironically
win.
enough.
Laborious hobbies. Let's go.
I know that's an 80-pound pack on uneven riverbed right
Oh
there.
man. You gotta strengthen those ankles. I did massage therapy professionally for about 15 years. I just retired in December, and all these things you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, I back injury myself, 350-pound roll of vinyl flooring squashed me in my 20s, and
Yeah. Oh, and then being young and not paying
it's
attention.
important. And I talk about this with a lot of people in relation to one-on-one at shows and stuff. I'm like, hey, what's your workout routine? Because looking down for 2 hours straight is not conducive to good neck health and low back,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you being hunched over with a big old slab or whatever else. Like, do you ever think about acquiring help for part-time help? Like, how would that look like if you did?
I mean, I do have part-time help.
Okay.
I have people that I call in. Lately, things have just kind of been so erratic. It's kind of hard to have someone
Right.
on
Right.
on a regular
Weren't you
basis.
offering an apprenticeship a while back or something
I've
like that?
never done an apprenticeship. I've always been a little scared of that.
Okay. I thought it was
Just
something like, or like maybe pay to learn or something like that.
yeah, I don't know, but I've had people work, on a regular kind of reoccurring schedule, where we're like
Okay.
walking the days.
Mhm.
And that's been nice. You get a lot more done, and I do a lot less sanding, because that can really
Yeah.
screw up your body.
Yeah.
So now I kind of call people in because there's going to be jobs that require more than one person can do, just in
Yeah.
terms of weight. And so I have people I call in for those kind of days, but by and large, it's just kind of been solo lately. And that changes. I'm sure I'll have more people around at a future date, but right
Right.
now it's just kind of seems to be, with the economy and everything where it is, just safer to just kind of be self-reliant and not have to worry about
Right.
supporting. Because when you have someone coming in and working for you, I don't know, personally, I feel, partially indebted to that person, at least to
Mm.
providing for that person.
Mhm.
Like, I don't got anything for you today, being an unreliable employer, basically. So
Right.
a lot of times you're getting work just for their benefit, not necessarily for your own business,
For sure.
So not having that kind of tether right now is kind of nice to give me the freedom where I can be a little more selective about what I take on.
But how many projects are you doing within a year?
Oh God, I don't know. I
Like,
mean, generally,
have you toned it down because you're back, or have you is it ramp up in summer, or is it slow down in winter?
it varies
Okay.
radically.
Well, as you
Right
said,
now,
economy based too, right?
yeah, right now I'm not pushing as hard as
You
I
kind of
have in
see
the
how the
past.
swing of the economy is going by how many people are buying trees or vice versa, or, whatever
Yeah, I
else.
mean, COVID was like it was pounding stuff out constantly. I mean, part of it was there was a high demand, and then there was that ever present kind of paranoia that this is like the world's going to collapse and this is the last job I'm going to have. So I'm not going to stop working until I drop
Right.
dead. So I think now I'm a little bit on the backside of that, just kind of like, okay, maybe do a little bit less. I mean, I built 8 pieces on a broken knee over COVID.
Same
Uh,
knee that you have the runner's knee on now?
the other knee.
Ah, okay. Your compensation there, maybe
Yeah,
the
exactly.
balance. Yeah, yeah.
But like I built a dresser on a broken knee, and it's just
Wow.
like when you're working like that, it's, I did a dining table. I remember talking to my physical therapist with a broken knee, just asking him like, okay, so like, how much can I lift right now on my knee, and like, I got to build a dining table. Like, how am I going to do that with this broken knee? And him being like, well, as long as you have your knee brace on, you can lift as much as you want, and just trying to, and it's
Mhm.
just like that takes a toll.
Yeah,
There is a mental exhaustion that comes from pushing your body that hard.
yeah.
So right now I'm kind of enjoying,
I was just saying,
maybe
and
not.
not being 20 anymore.
Yes, I know that doesn't help either.
That's where I'm at. My brain, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh, I'm really sore now and I can't bend.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
tends to wear a little more. So I'm trying to be a little smarter about how I work.
yeah,
Certainly smarter about how I move.
yeah,
The woodworking, it's as much of a dance as it is a labor. Body mechanics are
yeah,
very important. That whole
yeah.
lift with your legs thing, it translates into more than just picking shit up. I mean,
Right.
you have to think about how you're using your body.
What's the general length of a career for a woodworker of any kind? Is it like 30 years, maybe, or
I mean, I know a lot of very old woodworkers.
Hmm.
I mean, it depends, I think, on how smart you approach it.
Okay.
I mean, you could easily tap yourself out. But then I know a lot of 75-year-old woodworkers too.
Did they start later in life or have they just been doing it the whole time?
They're doing it the whole time.
Oh, wow.
When you're self-employed,
Yeah.
retirement, I think, looks a little different than when you
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
have an office job. So I think it is important to maybe, you
Yeah.
have to maintain yourself in a little bit of a different way because
Yeah.
there is that potential that you might be doing this later than other people might want to be doing things.
Yeah. The ever compounding question, what's a day off?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. Well, that's the fun part about being self-employed too, is a day off can be a Wednesday,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which has been enjoyable. Even just doing the fossil thing, just being able to kind of take off when the weather's nice
Mm.
and go out and do something, and I can catch it up later. There's a beauty to that kind of freedom.
Where are you going for that? Are you going coastal? Are you going
Well, I was
valley,
thinking of
rivers,
just
or?
up by Vernonia.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's a nice
I've got
area.
a site there that I've always been very attracted to. It's just a very beautiful environment. It's a bluff on the Nehalem River,
Mm-hmm.
and cliffs and rivers present just a really nice kind of environment to hike and exist in. You get a lot of beautiful scenery in that kind of environment.
Definitely.
So, I mean, if there were no fossils there, it would be a beautiful place to be. I'd go there, I think, just on that merit alone. But it also happens to be kind of a world-class fossil site as well. Um, that has kind of also been understudied these days. It was commercially mined in the 70s. And then the general kind of scuttlebutt in the fossil world is that it was tapped out
Hmm.
and done. No, nothing left there. They took it all. But it's kind of hard to take everything in nature. There's always something.
Right.
So I've kind of been searching it again now and finding things that nobody has ever known existed there before. I mean, already I've found a couple of new formations that have fossils at this site that people don't even know existed prior. So
That's
the
cool.
site's bigger than people initially thought.
Yeah.
And more varied too. And this year might have already pulled out a species new to science. So I mean, it's definitely stuff to learn and stuff to see there, So it's not done.
No, it never is, right? It just takes more time to get into it.
It's not the same site it was before they commercially mined it, but at the same time.
What were they mining for?
Crinoids.
Okay.
It was a special deposit there of crinoids that were articulated. And those are some money makers. I mean, they're a beautiful aesthetic fossil, so they're easy to sell. So
right. Quick in, quick out. Yeah.
Somebody went in there and they mined at those. And that particular type of crinoid is gone. Yeah. You don't find them much there. Although I have found a few. So I'm curious, maybe they're still there somewhere, but nobody really knows at the moment.
Dig deeper, look harder.
Mysteries. Well, that's the thing. And that's where I win. I was out with an older gentleman and I was like, my strategy is to just go farther and harder and go to the places that other people just be like, yeah, I'm not going to bother in that. Like last time I was out there, we were in a blackberry bramble. I was like, this stuff falls off the mountain and it rolls down the hillside. You can get some good stuff right here, but then down there and all those blackberries, I bet nobody's checked that out ever. So it's got to be loaded. And sure enough.
You're bringing tools along with you and everything just to kind of.
Yeah. I mean, it's like going out and collecting Yamadori.
I was thinking that, yeah.
Except there's no aftercare.
Yeah. Maybe just a little water to show the ambiance more of the fossil.
Yeah. So it's the same. It scratches the same itch, basically.
Nice, man.
So, a lot of chisels, a lot of pry bars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same deal.
That's awesome. I just have a couple more questions. We've been talking for a hot minute. I know you got stuff to do and I got stuff to do, but I saw on your website that you host online classes via Zoom still. Do you still do those, and how do those look? A, and B, do you think that you'll have in-person classes anytime in the future going forward?
Yeah, I mean, my personal class schedule is a little more sporadic. It kind of ebbs and flows with the workload. When work's very heavy, it's hard to clear the space in the shop even to host the class, let alone find the time to actually do it. And so there is certainly like a push and pull in terms of the quantity of classes that I'm offering. I do foresee in the near future having more in-person classes. Work demand is a little lighter, and also I just think that kind of the timing is right. So hopefully here in the new year, I plan to put some classes on the schedule, January, February, March, in the spring. And then like the Zoom class is just kind of, I mean, the advantage there is it opens up in terms of people who can attend. If I'm doing in-person classes, I'm pulling from Portland by and large. I mean, sometimes people fly in for them, but I mean, your general market is what's people are able to drive in your local market. So the Zoom just kind of allows me to tap into a wider following, which has been nice.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's an interesting tool. How it applies to woodworking is kind of challenging. It's hard to teach someone how to use a table saw via Zoom.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, how does that apply? But I guess certain applications lend themselves easier than others.
Yeah, like I did finishing online in Zoom, and that worked out pretty easy because that's more of a kind of lecture instruction based. I do want to work out kind of a Jita live edge class via Zoom. I think that would be a simple enough thing to tackle. And I think that would be basically you could just mail the student kind of a package. You sign up for the class. You get a package of unfinished Jitas and maybe the wire wheels to do it, and you provide the drill, and then you can kind of interact and watch, and everybody can be working with the same equipment.
That's cool.
So I think that would work as well. So, I mean, different flavors for the different mediums. But most of my in-person are kind of bonsai stand build based classes. So, and I've done
I was gonna say, and you're not teaching any bonsai related classes or anything that way. You're just doing focused only on tables.
Yeah, I mean, I there's plenty of people teaching how to grow trees.
True.
And I necessarily have much to contribute in terms of that. I grow my own trees, but I would consider myself more of a hobbyist and an educator in that realm.
Gotcha.
So, stick to my wheelhouse and
yeah, don't reinvent it. Yeah.
But I think you can gain a broader appreciation of your bonsai through woodwork. I mean,
yeah,
we're using the tree as the material in the woodwork. So I think you gain a larger appreciation for the horticulture and just personality of the trees by playing with their material, their bones essentially. So I think there is kind of a mutual education that happens there, even though it's not directly relevant. But I think, it's easy to appreciate woodwork with an appreciation of bonsai and vice versa. I think it's very easy to appreciate bonsai with an appreciation of woodwork because they're so intimately linked.
Right. Yeah. No, that's for sure. Thank you, man. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me on.
I hope it was fun. I had a lot of fun, learned a lot about you and a lot about your craft and art and silly ramblings of my mind. Take it easy up there. Stay warm this winter and I'll see you around.
Yeah, you do the same. I think you need it more than me right now.
Yeah. Start a fire soon or something.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Take it easy. The Bonsai Time podcast has been horticulturally crafted by Kevin Ferris, Ryan Houston, and Kelly Louie. And if you want even more bonsai magic, don't forget to check out the episode notes and full show extras at bonsaitimepodcast.com. If you're loving the show, help us grow like a thriving juniper. Like, subscribe, share, and spread the bonsai love. Got questions, ideas, or fan mail? Send it to bonsaitimepodcast@gmail.com. Your message might make it onto a future episode. We're everywhere you scroll. Just search Bonsai Time Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And catch our TikTok snips at Bonsai Time Pod. Follow the team on Instagram at Kevin_Ferris Bonsai, at Bonsai with Kelly, and Ryan at In Vivo Bonsai and InVivoBonsai.com. Thanks for tuning in. Keep pruning, keep growing, and always bonsai on.